Hey everybody, my name is Jason and this is Netminder Review. It's time for our Sunday NHL goaltender power rankings. I've been doing this every Sunday for the last few weeks and it's time for the next installment. We do have some movement this week, some people who have changed places. We've got some people who have made it onto the power ranking for the first time. We've got some goaltenders who have dropped off of the power ranking since last week. Now, in previous weeks, I had done a little segment at the beginning where I talked about weak goals, shutouts, and stolen games from the previous week. I'm not doing that this week, but I might get back to it next week. We'll see how things go. So this week, all I'm doing is the power ranking and discussing a little bit with some of the guys that are on there. So first off, let's talk about number 10. Number 10 this week from the Chicago Blackhawks is Robin Lehner. Now, the Blackhawks lately have not been doing too fantastically. Robin Lehner in his last 5 is 2, let me make sure I've got this right. Yep, 2-2-1, which is not great. The Blackhawks have not been great lately, but Lehner on the season does have a .921 save percentage, and he's also got a 2.91 goals against. Now, the 2.91 is respectable, but the .921 save percentage is really good. Lehner's playing well. I think yesterday he allowed 4 goals in that 8-4 victory over Calgary. So, 4 goals obviously is not ideal. Nevertheless, if you go back and you watch the highlights of those goals, you're not going to look at those goals and say, wow, what was wrong with Robin Lehner? Okay, so Lehner is playing strong. He's really splitting a lot of time with Corey Crawford, but he's playing well. So he's hanging around. Let's see, last week he was not on the power ranking, but he was the week before. So he's hanging right around the last part of the power ranking. And so this week he's back on there again at number 10. So number 9 this week is Jacob Markstrom from the Vancouver Canucks. Now, if you've been following the Canucks at all, then you'll know that Markstrom has been strong, really strong, and he's had some super good games. He's really played amazingly frequently, but the Canucks themselves are just kind of, they're kind of up and down a little bit, but they're hanging out, at the top of the Pacific. So overall, they're playing strong, and Markstrom has been just such a huge part of that. So Markstrom is 2-3-0 in his last 5 starts. That's not phenomenal, but again, kind of like Robin Lehner, only I think more so, honestly. If you look at Markstrom's last 5 starts, I really think the losses are on the Canucks, not on Markstrom. This is not a goaltending issue with the Vancouver Canucks. Now, I know today that Demko started for the Canucks, not Markstrom, and I know that he, let in obviously a few more goals than he wanted, and the Canucks did not win that game. But focusing on Markstrom has played really, really well, regardless of whether the Canucks have won or lost those games, which he played in. Now, Markstrom had dropped off of the power ranking last week, just barely, and he was on the week before that, so he's back on again. He is, like I said, 2-3-0 in his last 5 starts, but he has been so good, really, really, really strong. And so he makes it back on here at number 9. At number 8, a goaltender who's been on the power ranking every week that I've done it. He's moved around a little bit. Last week, he was 7th. This week, he drops to 8th. Not really because of his own play, just because of movement and other guys who have kind of bumped up. And that from the Boston Bruins is Yaroslav Halak. So Yaroslav Halak is 4-1-0 in his last 5 starts. He's playing very strong, and obviously we know the Bruins are really, really good right now. And it looks like possibly to be passed by the Tampa Bay Lightning for first place in the entire NHL. And, I think the Pittsburgh's also making a push for that. But Boston is arguably the best team in the NHL, or at least one of the top three. And their goaltending has been such a strong spot. Now, I know they score well. They're a good team all around. But certainly goaltending is a major strong spot. And one could definitely argue that Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak may be the best goaltending tandem in the NHL. I mean, there are probably a couple others that you could throw out there and say, well, we could make a debate for this, but I'm going to say that they definitely deserve to be in the argument. Now, number seven, a goaltender who just missed making it onto the power rankings last week for the first time. And this week he's on, but he got hurt yesterday. And I was reading an article from The Athletic today, and at the time of the article, there was still no word on whether this goaltender's injury was going to keep him out for a while. They said that we probably would not get word until tomorrow, which will be Monday. And that from the Colorado Avalanche is Philip Grubauer. Sorry. Philip Grubauer is 4-1-0 in his last 5 starts, and Colorado has been strong lately. Now, they lost the Stadium Series game yesterday against LA, in which Grubauer got hurt, and Francouz went in the game and played fine, allowed 1 goal, and LA won that game. Grubauer had allowed 1 goal in that game before he got hurt. And I'm not counting that game when I say that Grubauer was 4-1-0 in his last 5 starts. Grubauer has been playing very well lately and helped Colorado, get back into that push for first place in the Central. And with the Blues nosediving like they are, Colorado was primed to take over the first place spot in the division. The question now becomes, if Grubauer's injury is long-term at all, can Francouz take over? Can Francouz be the goaltender that can take the lion's share of the games and win them and continue to play well for Colorado? Francouz, let me look at my notes here real fast. Francouz has only played 24 games in the NHL. Now, in those 24 games, he's been very strong. His numbers have been very good. I thought I had him written down here. Let me see. Well, I thought I had him written down, but I guess I don't. But he's played 24 games, and his numbers have been very strong this year. So, there's reason for Colorado to be able to look at Francouz and say, all hope is not lost if Grubauer is out for a while. But with the way Grubauer had been playing, it's hard to imagine that going from Grubauer to Francouz will not be at least a little bit of a step down. And of course, this begs the question, is Joe Sakic going to want to make a move now, coming up on the trade deadline for a goaltender? And there are goaltenders out there to be had. Obviously, I don't get to sit in any of the GM offices, but all I'm saying is that there are teams that are not, or they sure don't look like they're going to be in the playoff hunt, that have goaltenders that would be desirable. Would any of them be a step up from Francouz? Well, I don't know. Maybe. Which teams are willing to move a goaltender at the deadline, and would Joe Sakic make that move? That'll be really interesting to see. Number 6, and he was, and by the way, Grubauer, I think I said this, but Grubauer was not on the power ranking last week. He was just off of it a little bit. He had never been on the power ranking yet so far since I've been doing them. So this is his first appearance on the power ranking. Number 6, up from number 9 last week, and that's Ben Bishop of the Dallas Stars. Now, Ben Bishop has been on the power ranking every week since I started it. He started out much higher. I believe he was 3rd, if I remember correctly, the first time that I did it. And then he fell all the way to 9th last week, but now he's back up to 6th. Bishop is 3-1-1 in his last 5 starts. And Dallas, really Dallas could be the team to make a serious push for the Central. If the Blues don't fix their woes, whatever it is that is causing them to nosedive, which right now they're not getting much scoring. They're allowing, I don't want to say weak goals, but they're definitely allowing goals that they were not allowing earlier in the season. So if the Blues can't right their wrongs, and if Colorado begins to fall off because of Grubauer's injury, again, if Grubauer's injury is long-term at all, then that could really open the door wide for the Dallas Stars. If they can start scoring some goals and continue to get the fantastic goaltending and defense that they've been getting all year, the Dallas Stars could blow right through and really make a push to take over the Central Division. So Ben Bishop comes in at number 6. Again, that's up from number 9 last week. Number 5 this week, and this goaltender was number 5 last week, and that also from the Dallas Stars is Anton Khudobin. Now, Khudobin's been on the power ranking, I think, every week since I've done it, except for a few weeks ago I took him off because he just hadn't started any games in a while, and I really want this to be reflective of goaltenders who have good season-long statistics combined with recent success. So if a goaltender just isn't playing, then I don't really want them to be on here. So Khudobin had not been playing, and now he's playing again. In his last 5 starts, he's 3-2-0. Not fantastic. I mean, not bad, really. That's good. But his statistics are still really strong, okay? So if you think about this, I mean, imagine being a Dallas Stars fan, and really you've got Khudobin and Bishop, who statistically are 2 of the best goaltenders in the NHL. So I had stated earlier, maybe the best goaltending tandem right now in the NHL is Boston with Tuukka Rask and Yaroslav Halak. Maybe it's Dallas with Anton Khudobin and Ben Bishop. I mean, either one of those 2 teams could certainly, an argument could be made for either one of them that they have the best goaltending tandem in the NHL. There probably aren't a lot of teams that would not love to have those 2, even over what they have now, although there are some other good ones out there. So Khudobin, number 5, again, 5 last week, 5 this week, he does not move. Number 4, and this is down from number 2, is Elvis Merzlikins of the Columbus Blue Jackets. So Merzlikins is 2-2-1 in his last 5 games. And he's allowed more goals lately. He has not been as strong. And so as a result, Columbus has not been winning as many games. And then, of course, they had Kivlenieks go in there and not do so well recently either. So Columbus, we go back to when Korpisalo got hurt, and the big concern was kind of like what it might be with Colorado. Can the backup pick up for the fantastic goaltending that Korpisalo had offered up to that point? And then, of course, the answer with Merzlikins became yes, absolutely. But now he's starting to level out just a little bit, and Columbus is not winning quite as many games. Columbus is going to have Merzlikins continue to play fantastically if they're going to have a hope of holding on to a playoff spot and doing anything once the playoffs start. So Merzlikins came out, on fire, He was tearing up the league, winning every game that he was in, and winning well, highlight reel, amazing, fantastic, all that. And now he's cooled off a little bit. Now he's still playing very well, and his stats are still very strong, but he's cooled off enough that it warrants dropping him from the number 2 spot here, where he had been, and dropping him down to number 4. And if you go back and you watch the power rankings last week, I had Rask at number 1 and Merzlikins at number 2, and I was stating that, they could really go either way. It could be a coin flip for who deserves to be 1 or 2. But since then, Merzlikins' play has suffered a little bit, and now he's dropped down to number 4. Number 3 on the power ranking, and he's been on for a while and hanging around the top every week. He was 3rd last week, and he's 3rd again this week, and that's Tristan Jarry. So Tristan Jarry of the Pittsburgh Penguins stays 3rd. He's 3-2-0 in his last 5 starts. However, can he stay at number 3? I stated earlier that I really want this to be reflective of goaltenders who are playing, goaltenders who have been strong all season and are playing well now. Well, in the month of February, Matt Murray has made 4 starts for the Penguins, and Tristan Jarry has made 2. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. I don't know if the Penguins just believe in Matt Murray to the degree that they want to get him going, so they're playing him more. Do they want to go with a true tandem even into the playoffs? I don't know what's on the mind of Sullivan, their coach, but right now Matt Murray's getting more playing time than Tristan Jarry. So if that continues, then I'll have to take a serious look at Jarry dropping down the list. Are his stats still strong? Absolutely. Is he still among the leaders in save percentage and goals against average? Yes, he is. But if he's not getting the bulk of the playing time, or at least truly splitting the playing time half and half, like we see kind of with Rask and Halak, or with Hudobin and Bishop more over the last week or so, then I'm not sure if he'll be able to hang out at the number 3 position very much longer. So that brings us to number 2 and number 1. Now this one's really hard for me because both of these guys, kind of like last week, I said it was hard because Rask and Merzlikins both had a sound argument for being first. Well, there's definitely a sound argument for either of these guys being first, and especially sort of a recency bias versus a statistics, or who's winning versus who's putting up better numbers. And so for right now, this is the way I went with it. At number 2, from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Andrei Vasilevsky. Now, if you're a Lightning fan and you're watching this and you're thinking about Vasilevsky, and partly the fact that he's 5-0-0 in his last starts, and the fact that, now this number's gonna, sit down for this number. It's a heck of a statistic. 22, 1, and 2 in his last 25 starts. Vasilevsky has only lost 1 game in regulation and 2 games in overtime or shootout in his last 25 starts. Andrei Vasilevsky, anybody by any standard could argue, deserves to be in this spot. And I would have a hard time arguing against it. I'll explain to you in a moment why I put who I did at number 1. But Andrei Vasilevsky, again, 5-0-0 in his last 5 starts, 22, 1, and 2 in his last 25 starts. Of course, we know that Tampa Bay has gone from, will they make the playoffs to will they win the President's Trophy? And it looks like they might win the President's Trophy or make a big push for it. Of course, for all of us who remember the playoffs last year, Tampa Bay having this amazing season where they tore up the entire league and then got swept by Columbus in the first round. It's going to be pretty imperative, regardless of whether Tampa Bay wins the President's Trophy or not, regardless of where Tampa Bay finishes, it's going to be pretty imperative that they make a push into the playoffs, a deep push into the playoffs. And if they don't, I don't think history is going to judge this team very well. You know, win all the games you want in regular season, that's fine and good and all. But if you can't do anything in the playoffs, then at the end of the day, what does it really matter, or what does it really mean? So Andrei Vasilevskiy was number 4 last week on the power ranking, and he moves up to number 2. Now, at number 1, and he was number 1 last week, from Boston, is Tuukka Rask. Tuukka Rask is 4-1-0 in his last 5 starts. And if you're a Boston fan, you probably think that this looks about right. If you're a Tampa Bay fan, you probably think this is backward. And if you're a neutral fan, you might think, well, coin flip. And I'm pretty neutral, okay? I'll be honest, I'm not a Boston fan. Tampa Bay, I could take or leave. I can go either way. I don't like them or dislike them. They're just another team in the NHL. I like Tuukka Rask and I like Vasilevskiy, but I don't particularly have a favorite between the two. I'm trying really hard not to play favorites. The way that I'm looking at this is as follows. Tuukka Rask was number 1 last week, and he hasn't done anything to drop him from number 1 this week. Vasilevskiy was number 4 last week, and he moves up to number 2. It really could be a 1-1A kind of thing like it was last week with Rask and Merzlikins. Rask's overall statistics, goals against average, save percentage, are better than Vasilevskiy's. Vasilevskiy's got the win totals. And we could argue, well, yeah, but he plays on Tampa Bay and they're amazing. However, if you go back and you look at those games, it's not a situation where Tampa Bay is winning regardless of their goaltending, okay? Last year, there were a handful of games, or a decent amount of games, where Tampa Bay was scoring, 7 goals, 6 goals, 9 goals, crazy numbers where you could look back and you could say, well, whether their goaltending was really very strong or not, they were still going to win those games. That's not the case this year. Tampa Bay is winning these games, and they're scoring, sure, but it's more like 3 goals, 4 goals, and not 6, 7, 8, 9 goals. Vasilevskiy is playing extremely well. He is a major part of them winning these games. So he's got these win totals, and his statistics are strong. But Rask also has great statistics, better statistics, really, fewer wins. However, we could ask the question, is the reason that Rask has fewer wins, is it because Rask isn't as good as Vasilevskiy? Or is it because Rask and Halak are splitting time? See, McElhinney in Tampa Bay is not getting very many starts. Vasilevskiy is getting almost all of the starts. Whereas in Boston, they're splitting this time. If Rask had as many starts as Vasilevskiy, then would he also have a ridiculous number of wins? I mean, Boston is first place in the entire NHL, though Tampa Bay is breathing right down their neck. So really, either one of these guys, you could make a sound argument for right now being deserving of being called the best goaltender in the NHL. And when it comes down to Vezina time, are these going to be 2 of our finalists? I would argue they probably will be, Vasilevskiy and Rask. And if things continue to trend the way they are, who wins the Vezina? One of these 2? Probably. Is it Vasilevskiy? Probably, because he will have played so many more games, just a larger sample size. And so I would imagine that the voters would look at that and say, the general managers who vote on it will look at it and say, oh, they're both fantastic, and they both deserve strong consideration for the Vezina, but Vasilevskiy played a lot more games. And depending on what happens this week, maybe next Sunday when I'm doing this video next Sunday, they may have flip-flopped or changed positions entirely, I don't know. right now it looks like Tampa Bay is an unstoppable force, and we'll see if Boston's able to continue in the direction that they're going. But even if they are, Halak is still taking some of those starts, whereas in Tampa, it's just not that way. Vasilevsky's getting them all. Anyway, this is my power ranking for the week. I hope you found this entertaining, enjoyable, informational. Actually, there's one other part that I wanted to say I forgot about. I'm going to talk real fast about the 3 goalies that dropped off from last week. So last week, Samsonov was on here from the Washington Capitals. But since then, Holtby's gotten more of the starts. Samsonov is 0-2-0 in his last 2 starts. And he's allowed 9 goals. He's only played 2 games in February. He's lost to them both, and he allowed 9 goals in those 2 games. And if I remember correctly, the last game that he played in January, he allowed 3 goals. So he hasn't been strong lately, and his numbers have suffered. Holtby's getting more starts now because of it. And so I just couldn't see fit to see Samsonov or keep Samsonov on this board. And I know that's a huge drop to go, off of the board, but I thought it was the right move. Carey Price also fell off. Carey Price had been on the last 2 weeks, and he has fallen off. In his last 5 starts, 1, 3, and 1, and he has allowed 3 or more goals in 4 of his last 5 starts. So Price has not been strong lately. He's fallen off. Connor Hellebuck was on, and he's been on and off so far ever since I started doing it. And he's 2-2-1 in his last 5 games, last 5 starts, but he's allowed 7 goals in his last 2 games. And honestly, Hellebuck and Leonard are really on here primarily because of their season-long numbers. They continue to play anywhere from well to exceptionally on any given week, but then the following week they might fall off a little bit and go back to just playing well. So, Hellebuck and Leonard could really be flip-flop, on, off. And so this week Leonard's on and Hellebuck is off, and we'll see what happens next week. But, I've made some comments about the Jets, and, they've got to get a lot straightened out. They really got to get a lot straightened out. They've got to get their defensive situation straightened out. They probably need to make a move for a defenseman or 2, I don't know, at the trade deadline. They've got a lot to work on the goal prevention side of things. And Connor Hellebuck is at the mercy of a less than stellar defensive core right now. And so at the moment, that costs him, and he's off of the power rankings. So those are your 3 players that dropped off. Ilya Samsonov from Washington, Carey Price from Montreal, Connor Hellebuck from Winnipeg. Replacing them are Philip Grubauer of the Colorado Avalanche. And if he has a long-term injury, he will not be on here next week because I'm not wanting to have injured goaltenders on here. Like I said, I want the guys who are on here to be actively playing and playing well. Also, first time on the board, or on the board this week, but not last week, Jacob Markstrom from the Canucks and Robin Leonard from the Blackhawks. So, again, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, where you agree, where you disagree. Please hit like. I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. That would be so cool. I can't even begin to explain how cool that would be. Please share this video with your friends. Tell all your friends about it if you found it interesting, informational, and have yourself an awesome day. Thanks for watching.